Indiana's a theater hipster. She wants to see German experimental
I hate that I was just called that. A theater hipster. That's me.
She would like Vano stuff.
Oh my God, yes.
Okay.
You want them to spill tomato juice all over your face.
Sure. As like a view from the bridge is happening.
Shock me. Like, wow me.
Monica,
Welcome to the podcast.
you can get any man you want. You don't need that one.
It's true. I agree.
What, the famous guy?
Why'd you have to break Monica's heart? We all know.
You could start a podcast like Dead Eyes, where the whole thing is like trying to get to
and ending marriage.
I'm just getting sadder and sadder is really what's happening. I already decided I'm marrying a man who didn't know I existed and who apparently is already married with children. Why is this a pattern?
Maybe you just like unavailable men.
I do.
Me too.
Talked about it in therapy a lot.
Oh.
I like unavailable men, and unavailable men like me because they can tell I am also unavailable.
Well, that's the thing. It's not our fault.
Yes.
They
Like
attract
attracts
us.
like.
Yeah. I have something in my eyeball.
Oh.
Get it? Do you need eye drops?
No, I think it's just
Why do you randomly have eye drops?
She always has eye
I have
drops.
clinically dry eyes, so I have special.
Do you have dry eyes? Does someone have a mirror?
I have a mirror. I got it recently in Larchmont.
Oh, cute.
I never have a mirror, and then it drives me crazy.
Shout
because I
out,
always want-
LA,
Shout out,
LA
Larchmont.
neighborhoods. Let's start.
All right.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
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 Huzzah.
Hello. You're hearing some familiar voices today. We have returning a couple of our faves. We have Monica McCarthy and Alex Wright.
Hi.
Indy's here too.
I really am.
For a short time. She's going to leave us and go to Barcelona after we finish this episode, and I'm going to be left to do this by
man the
myself.
I know. It's like, it's fun. I get to like kind of just chill. It's so good. I get to watch Haley fumble over there.
I finally am learning how to use the soundboard. Let's see if we got a...
You have to turn up the volume.
You look like you're trying to DJ. Oh.
I look quite pretty.
Kira.
Do you fear death?
Arr.
Guys.
I think that was it.
Oh,
Wait, I think you missed one at the top too. What was the first one?
This one doesn't have anything. It's not lit up.
Oh, that's if
This
we
is
curse.
the swear button.
That's if we say, wait for it.
Guys.
I'm gonna.
Fuck your.
Oh my God, that's so good.
Guys, the soundboard in London is a little bit more fun than the
It really
soundboard
is.
in LA.
LA is just rap beats.
Everyone's kind of serious. Hey guys, what are we doing here?
We're in London, actually.
Where are we?
London.
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 We're in North London.
Yeah.
We're in Camden. We're at the beautiful Pirate Studios in Camden today.
How Taylor
quick
Swift would want
free shout out to Pirate Studios for always being available to us.
I know. I hope your business is doing well, because you're always available to be booked out. But
You're always willing to take our money so that we
going.
can record in
Yeah.
your studios.
This is actually a really cool trip because we all kind of came together at the same time and decided to come. But we all have our own kind of. I know.
The beep sound.
You know, but we all kind of have our own like origin stories with London, and we're all in a different kind of like phase of coming back and reflecting, and I think a place like that is so interesting when you're building a new community of friends, because we're coming back to something that we all have, you know, very different experiences with, and we're making new memories together. So that's very, very cool. Yesterday we wrapped up our first London event with Cinematography for Actors that you two were incredibly fantastic at doing the panel with us.
It was so fun.
Yeah, it was.
I didn't do much.
You did a lot.
Yes, you did.
Even if you say one thing, it's like I know it's everybody's takeaway of the evening. So yeah.
Thank you.
Well, now
that
I
was
feel
great.
like crap. But
No, Monica's.
Dun, 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 dun,
Yeah, I
dun,
know. Yeah, Monica's like known now as like a staple in our community because of her involvement in kind of 3-4 events now. Four, three.
million.
Cook, Evidence, and last night. So thank you to CBP and Illuminatrix for hosting us yesterday, because it was so great to kind of have an overwhelming response of like, we need more of this here as well, because you never know, testing on a new market.
What I love about what y'all are doing is every time I explain to people what y'all do and what cinematography for actors is, everyone is just like, yes.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, yes, thank God, yes.
Yeah, and they're
Thank
like, this doesn't exist. And you're like, no, have you seen it before? And they're like, no. And you're like, then it doesn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We're at every event every week and it does not exist. It's kind of like wild. But hey, I want to hear I want to talk about the different London stories that led us here and stuff like that.
That's fun.
Alex,
Sure.
your history with London, what is it?
So, my very first time abroad ever, I was 20, and this is highly embarrassing. I was like, I was going to Paris. I was like, I need to dress nice for this international flight. I don't know why I thought that. So I wore like a dress and heels and boarded this plane, and they let me in like on first class. I was like, oh my God, we all get to sit in these nice chairs. And then they were like, no, keep going. I was like, oh, it looks like any other airplane. And, we had a layover in London, and it was like a multiple, wasn't a layover. We had like a stop in London. So it was like a multiple day stop. I was doing a study abroad in Paris. I should have said that. And so I got to spend like 3 or 4 days in London, just kind of hitting the high points. And then we went to Paris. And I remember being like, I have to come back here because I just knew there was so much of the city that I didn't get to see. And we didn't go see any shows or anything like that. And then my junior year, the very next year of college, I was like, I really want to do a study abroad program. And at USC, in the theater department, our only option was London. And I was like, well, that's perfect. I guess that makes my easy to choose. But it was the British American Drama Academy, which is a great program. Excuse me. And so you had to audition. I auditioned. I got in and spent my spring semester of my junior year in London. And it was so amazing. And we saw theater every single night. And then we were training during the day. And it was also really my first taste of what a classical training program looked like. Not that USC was a good program, but the USC program was very much like kind of whatever you wanted it to be. There wasn't really a lot of structure. You could graduate without taking like more than one acting class. It's kind of wild. So coming to London for that BADA training program was the first time I did, deep dives into voice and movement and Shakespeare and Rapier and Dagger and theater history. It was just such a crucial moment for me in terms of my training. And I really credit that to the reason why I wanted to get my master's, because I left BADA being like, oh, I want more of that. Like if I could just do that for like years and years, I'll be a happy human. So yeah, that was my London experience.
What was the total time in London?
It was a semester. So
amazing.
3.5 months. Yeah.
Something like that.
The beauty of something like that is like you were saying, you're like, during the day you're completely involved and then at night you're seeing shows, and it's like rarely do we get those opportunities in life now to do that. And so it's such a beautiful thing to have where you're just like so involved and so immersed in that entire experience.
I remember actually one of my teachers in grad school, she said to us that we had a summer session before the real like kind of big work kicked in, and during that summer session she said, you're going to get really overwhelmed because that's what these programs do. They kind of overwhelm you with training but remember that this is the only time really in your career as an actor where you can make really messy, brave choices, and you can be bad and you're not going to get fired. Yep. And I always, tried to remind myself of that when I was in that program, because it's true. You get really overwhelmed and then you sit there and you go, oh my God, I have to like memorize like my Tennessee Williams piece and I have to do my Shakespeare piece. And then you have to go, wait, when I graduate, I'm just going to be like dying
to do these pieces.
Yeah, exactly. And dying to feel that overwhelm and knowing that we're in this kind of bubble space to create and make mistakes and learn and grow. And as you're growing as an artist, you're obviously like growing so much as a person. Like you just feel that you are in this like chrysalis cocoon and you're going to come out as like a different person.
Beautiful. Did you come out as a different person?
I did.
Oh,
I did. I went in as Alley Cat and I came out as
Alexandra Wright.
Alexandra Wright, the actor.
I forgot about Alley Cat.
We're big on nicknames around here. Yeah. Do a big argument about.
Yeah, because I called her Shmonica.
And I didn't like it.
Do we all have nicknames we hate? What nickname do you hate?
No, I'm always like Inde or Indina.
Oh, Indina.
I get a lot of Indina in my life.
Never heard of that.
Yeah, because the E and the A go together in some people's minds. So they're like, Indina, is it? I'm like, it's not, but we can be. I mean, if you're attractive enough, I guess.
The other day that you thought I was calling you a nickname, and you were like, no.
What was it?
I forgot.
It's a really good story. Hey?
I know.
Okay, we'll remember and
cut that
edit
out,
it
John.
in.
Please cut that out.
Hey, John, our editor,
So
help us out here, man. Monica,
Yes.
you're kind of in a really interesting place because you're looking at, I mean, we need to talk about you finding your LA house, home, and community since you were first on the podcast.
Yes.
But as well, London, you're looking at kind of being bi.
I know.
National?
What's the word
What
for
is
it?
that?
International.
The global
Monocle.
series.
She's Carmen San Diego.
Yes,
dreams.
there it is.
Multi-country.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Multi-country.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a wild ride, and I mean, the London thing for me started. I was very much an Anglophile as a kid. Was like obsessed with like Elizabeth I. I remember when the movie came out, and I had these pop up books of like Henry VIII's wives.
Oh my God!
You know, like a dolls or something that you dress up probably. It's actually very odd when I think about it. But and then for my undergrad, it was very similar to Alex's story of I went to Pepperdine, and they had a campus. They still have a campus here in South Kensington, and every other year the theater program would go for a semester in the summer, and you would train and you would work with the RSC, and then you would go see all the shows. That was how I was first introduced to Shakespeare. I was not a huge fan before, which is, you know, partly why I feel so passionate about like teaching it to people that are not huge fans, because I'm like, I get it. And then seeing, you know, Vanessa Redgrave perform Prospero at the Globe, and I was like, I'm converted.
Wow.
So, and then we would, the difference was then we would rehearse there, and we would also perform at the Edinburgh Fringe Theatre Festival.
Okay.
So I remember we did a modern adaptation of Moliere's The Misanthrope. And yeah, set in Malibu, of course. Where it was. And of course it was Silliman, and it was probably terrible. We loved it. And then, you know, would stop in London mostly like on my way to other places during travels over the, you know, next 10 years. And then just started to like really admit that I really loved it. I mean, I lived, as we talked about, I think before, you know, I lived in New York for 20 years. And I finally had the realization of, I'm like, you know, I love New York. New York's amazing for what it is. But part of it for me, when people would ask why New York, I would say, well, it's the closest thing we have in the States to London.
Right.
And I was like, you dummy. Why not just go live in London? So when it came time, you know, when my apartment was up in New York, and I was like, I just don't think that I want to move to another place in New York. And I had met Alley Cat not long before, and I had other friends there in LA and all these things. Anyways, it ended up being like, what if I really tried to split my time? Like, what if I really made a go of this? And it was, at the time, I was like London, New York, and LA. And I love, you know, New York will be on the way to and from London, but I think I need to narrow it down. So anyway, so it was actually really through Alley Cat that I found the place that I'm at now, which I'm very excited about. I moved in for like 2 nights before
I know, right?
taking off. And then, yeah, I mean, last year I came out 3 times. I made a point of being like, I want to check it out to London to, you know, in every season, and stay in different places and get more of a feel from it from the perspective of what I live here. And I was also researching for a play and a pilot that I'm writing that, you know, took place here in the 1700s. And so it just kind of kept coming up. And then, you know, as we were talking, you know, right before we hit record, there's just so many things you learn just from being there. Like I have so many questions that I thought I could have Googled around visas and actors equity and all of these things. It's actually been quite challenging, but every conversation I have, somebody has some amazing insight, you know, as to solve it, or like, here, I have a flat, or, you know, it really is amazing. That's why, again, coming back to what you guys are doing and the event last night and all of that, it really is so powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's good because you're like putting it out into the universe. You're like saying, you know, even,
saying it out loud.
even when Monica was like leading the Thorn, Bud, Rose segment of Speed Connect, the examples you were giving, you know, to the crowd were examples of the things that you're in need of. And I love that, because I'm a big believer of like, if you offer vulnerability, people will offer it back. And even it's something as small as like just saying like, I need a flat, or I need a husband. Like I need like a visa, you know, things like that. People just, they know they can come up to you about that, even if it's something like similar, or, you know, it kind of takes that guard down a little. So no, that's amazing. How are you feeling about like moving to London now that you've started to kind of like build more of a community every day in LA? Yeah,
it feels, well, it's interesting because I was going to say I'm such a Pisces. That's the joke now in the house, because I'll be like, oh, this is such a Pisces thing. But because I'm actually so surprisingly happy in LA. Like I really wasn't, because I grew up in Orange County, went to Pepperdine. Like, I don't know, I had this image in my head of what LA was. Also, LA has changed a lot, I think, in a lot of amazing ways. And, so I was actually really sad to leave. In some ways, I was like, "Oh, only for London would I go?" Because it's definitely the other thing that you start to realize when you really do start to plant yourself in multiple places is that there is a cost. There really, and I don't just mean like financial costs. I mean like you largely around community, and even when I'm looking at like, auditions or seasons coming up of shows or, anyone wanting to put anything on the books of like, okay, well, here's going to be the next event or whatever. The brain is constantly like context switching and trying to figure it out.
Where
And
will I be?
Yeah, where will I be? Yeah. And, I have an idea in my head of what months I'll be here versus LA, but like the reality, as I've learned, is like, that's hilarious. That's cute that you think that. So, I think it's, much as TBD. I can't wait to have another, chat later in the year and be like, this is how it worked out.
Check in. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then Haley, this is like a big moment.
This is a really big
you.
moment for me.
Because it's your first time being back since you left in 2017.
I left in 2017.
And how's that been, reflecting back on it? You were in a very different place in your life.
I was in a very different, I didn't realize how dark it was. It was a bad time. Coming back here has been so exciting. I keep saying it feels fucking triumphant. Like if someone asks me how I'm feeling, I feel triumphant because it's really great to have the opportunity to turn not only turn this into a positive space and see old friends and see them in a different dynamic sort of, but also with Indiana to have built something that the four of us could bring and offer to the friends I left behind who knew me when I was I was really trapped, and I was, I was good at masking, but I was clearly very depressed, and in bad company. And so having them come and be like, this is awesome. You look so well. We can tell you're doing well. And this thing that you brought here is cool. So being able to bring something back and offer something to people, and also connect in a new way with a few people who I needed to clear air with, or just, give a big hug and let them know that like things are okay between us, because things may not have seemed that way before. Has just been, I'm renewed, know, and London is renewed for me as well.
Well, we talked about the being reclaiming, because we were. Same thing. I have some memories here that I would rather, not. But every time if I like see the hotel or something like that, I'm like, I'm reclaiming it.
This is mine now.
Exactly.
Yeah. Back off.
There is something, and I will refrain from using names, but I'm wondering if you're open enough to talk about the experience you had last night and the story that you had when you left London, because we are building such a beautiful kind of community with cinematography for actors, but also like a beautiful like female friendship with multiple women, who are represented here. We also have, Sydney back home, and, we have Cody who's out seeing some of her friends today, and, it just keeps growing, and there's such a support there, and we only know that support in this group. And I wonder if you're open to sharing, without using names, the thing that you had shared with Anna last night at dinner.
Yeah. I can legally do that in a very careful way. I was involved when I lived here with a theater company. So I spent a lot of money on it, and I was responsible for a lot of the payout, any kind of like bookings and things like that. And I had to leave town for a little while, and the director who was directing at the time wanted to do a show. So I was like, sure, I'll be away, but I'm also working a lot, so I can finance it, and you go ahead and cast and put this thing together, and when I come home, I'll be really excited to see what you've done. And while I was away, he was a married man, and he cast a very, very young girl who had a boyfriend at the time, but he isolated her through a wild amount of rehearsals that he made her believe she had to be at in order to have this part, and also made her believe that they had to have a relationship in order for her to do a good job in this show. So I came back and I believed at the time, or, you know, was blinded or wanted to believe that they were just simply having a relationship, and that she was as involved as he was. I realized later that that wasn't the truth, and I woke up to that victimization of this young girl and felt so guilty that I had financed something and also organized something that put her in that position, and that when I saw what was happening, I chose to believe that that's not what it was. So I reached out to her later after I'd left the country. We spoke, and we were able to kind of, you know, clear the air there and kind of just be like, you know, I'm so sorry that I put you in that situation, and that I wasn't awake enough to be able to like put a stop to it. And she sent me a letter that she sent to Equity about this director, outlining everything and all of the abuse. So last night she came to the event last night, and we were finally able really to get a hug in and just be like, we are good. I love you, and I'm sorry, and whatever kind of support we need from each other, we can come to each other for. And so that was, I mean, maybe the biggest thing that I felt needed to happen here, and I feel really clear about it now.
Thank you for sharing that. That's so powerful.
Yeah, I didn't know that story at all.
I know, yeah. A big yucky mistake in a place where women should have helped women, and I was the responsible party who did not help somebody.
I think it's like way beyond that, because obviously you were in the dark for a lot of it, and I know.
That's how I
know.
feel.
I know.
Guilty
Yeah, no,
about
I
it.
know.
Yeah.
When Haley told me that, I didn't realize that she was coming last night. And so when Haley and I were at dinner after with Anna, who's also been on the podcast and was on the panel, Anna Goodbrands, Anna hadn't heard that story. And so Haley told it, and I said, that's just it's such a crazy thing that you had to leave behind and had to hang on to for several years. And it's such a beautiful moment when you can kind of come together and support somebody in a new way, and also like feel that you two are kind of together again as women. And something that is one of the reasons I love Haley so much, and the reason that we started a business together, is because there's so much support and building of community and strong women in our circles. And so it's great to come back here and to bring those women that are a part of your past into this in a new way that supports them, and is like, hey, the next time I'm here, come again to one of these things. Let's support each other. If you're in LA, if I'm in London. And so it's beautiful that you were able to have that experience and to kind of probably feel some sort of like levity to the situation.
Definitely. It is a beautifully positive thing now that that, and the feelings I have towards her, and I also believe the feelings she has towards me are very,
and this director can't work here anymore,
and wonderful, and this director can't work here anymore.
Huzzah.
Won't bother us ever again.
I know. It's good. It's great that she wrote a letter like that as well to Equity, and knew that was like the thing she had to do, and sent it to you as well.
And I'm very grateful to her for sharing it with me.
Well, that was our emotional few minutes.
Thank you for sharing that, Haley. And bravo to you for like, again, I hope you have some compassion for yourself, and some grace, because you were also in the dark on a lot of that. But also like, bravo to you for going, this is how I feel, and this is where I feel there was a missed opportunity, or however you want to phrase it. And also like, bravo, and give yourself some grace and compassion, because we all know you, and we all know your heart, and we know that you would never put someone in a situation like that had you known.
Last night on the panel, it was so wild, especially, you know, in this industry, everybody on the panel was women. And it's so funny because so often in the States, they're like, oh, do you know any woman? Do you know
Yes,
any woman
I
that could be
know,
on
it's
this
true.
panel? I'm like, I know 5 gazillion women.
It's
What is
so
wrong with you?
I know.
It's so wild, but it was so cool to have 2 of you DPs that were female, and then us actress folks. I don't know. It was just really.
It's almost like I
delightful.
can't find men anymore because I'm just so supported by incredible women that I want in the panels. You know,
It's like the witches, like the witches last week. 2 of them were on the same show, which was so
Aw.
Do we need to
cool.
explain
Oh my
the
gosh!
witches?
Wait, what?
Yeah, Kerry Washington's new show. So the witches, we call ourselves the witches. We don't really do anything witchy, but it's a group of women in Los Angeles. Some people are in the industry, some aren't, but we all get together about, we try to do once a month. We come together and we support each other, and we'll do something that's kind of charity focused, but it's just the same thing. It's just so supportive.
Yes.
And whenever we have a witch event, it's so lovely because the witch will come up and they'll go, I have been looking for this and I haven't been able to find it. But yeah, we had like 2 witches who are on Kerry Washington's new show. They were both in the premiere, and it was so fun to be
That
like,
is so
oh,
cool.
witch, it's taking over.
I know.
Congratulations to those 2 witches.
Yeah.
Because I work on the crew side for so long in this industry, I was just surrounded by men. I never thought about having female friends until I got out of some bad relationship and was like, I have no female friends to go to, and I don't want to talk to anybody else. And I have no and so Haley knows that, she was one of my first female friends in LA, I would say, like close female friends.
What? Are you serious?
Maybe.
Oh my gosh.
And since then, it's kind of been just like this domino effect of just gathering more and more people together. And now my schedule has changed so much from like hanging out with this guy friend to hanging out with this guy friend to like no time for guy friends. And it's just like I'm seeing female friends all the time. And it's such a satisfying interaction. Every interaction I have is just there's so much gratitude there, and it feels like so fulfilling, and it's amazing. We haven't been to your witches thing yet. We have to come. We have our women's circle that we do with some of our female friends, and it's very similar. It's like just getting together and being honest and transparent and really taking the time to hear each other and hear where we're at. And share food always.
Do some intention setting.
I would just take it even a step further because I'm by nature rather competitive, and it was so wild to me. This even happened the other day. Alley Cat was, aka Alexandra, Wright, was tape. She had some auditions, some self tapes, and she did them, and she was like, "You should put yourself on tape for these. You would be right for these." And I've never had somebody say that. That was so
you
wild.
should do this too.
Yeah.
We have like an email chain. Women who were like, we're kind of all similar-ish.
Yeah.
And if we get something and we're like, you should do this, we'll just like pass it on to each
amazing.
other. Because and then what's also funny is so the 2 witches who booked this show, this Kerry Washington show, Corey Clifford and Ellen Rowe, our other witch was pinned for one of the other parts. And so when she didn't get it, and I knew that she was pinned for it because Corey and her were also pinned, and they told me like, oh, I'm pinned for this thing, and they told me the part, and I was like, oh, that's so funny, y'all are pinned for the same thing. And so when Corey got it, I told the other witch, and she was like, oh my God, well, if it's not me, I'm just so happy it's another witch.
Yeah.
It's like, so.
I just had a birthday, and I didn't know what I wanted to do in New City and all of that stuff. And it was a Monday. But I was like, I just wanted to be like witchy, and so went to a witch store and got a witch candle, and they set intentions on it and put spells. So I just did like multiple different things, and each outing I went to, somebody gave me a candle.
Oh yeah, we gave you one.
You guys gave me a candle, Pisces candle. I was at the witch store, got a candle. I was with my college friends, got me a candle. And I don't mean just like, whatever. Like, what were those ones where they're all in a candle? You go in the store in the mall and it smelled terrible because it was like 5,000 different smells. Doesn't matter.
Like Yankee candle.
Yes, Yankee candle. We're not talking Yankee candle. We're talking,
we're not
intention
like
candles.
white intention
Magic
setting
candles.
magic candles.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Is there, because we're in London, because I don't know this, is there more of a following, respect, whatever you want to call it, around theater compared to LA?
Yeah.
Okay.
LA's not really a
Big
theater
time.
town.
Yeah.
Big time.
It's big time.
Is it just more people want to be involved in like performance? Because I know you used to run a pub theater, and then I know there's also the shows that you guys are going to.
One of the biggest differences, even from New York, is that here everything is in one place.
Okay.
So you got sound stages in here, you've got the theater here, you've got the theater schools here. So everyone can be in one place. In the States, now, yes, you're getting some more theater in LA and more TV in New York, but really traditionally it's been very separate.
Okay.
And then the training schools are all over the place. So somebody pointed that out to me, and that makes so much sense to me. It's like traditionally it's all been in one place, so that makes it even.
Got it.
You've got the actors are all kind of in one area, the crew's all in one area.
There is a theater community in LA.
Yes,
There is.
Yeah.
But it's small and it's comprised of people who already know and love theater. It's not like anyone is going to LA and finding theater for the first time the way it tends to happen here. It's people who are already passionate enough that they'll pay money for a ticket and drive to Pasadena to go see a show.
I also feel like this idea that as an actor you can only be one thing versus being a multi-hyphenate. I also feel like there used to be this thought, and thank God it's changing, where it's like, oh, so you're an actor, so do you want to do theater, TV, or film?
Right.
And it's like, I want to do all of it. And so I think that it's changing in LA, and I think it's changing in New York, where you have more theater in LA and you're getting more TV and film in New York. But I think because it used to be like, I'm a theater actor, I will go to New York. I'm a TV actor, I will go to LA.
Right.
And it drives me crazy when people are like, are you I'm like, do all, or I'm going to have students who are like, I really just want to focus on film. I'm like, no one has ever said thou must choose one.
Yes.
Right.
You know, like they're all going to inform each other.
Yeah.
Well, and also the lines are getting blurred, first of all, between TV and film. There really is no even line between there. And then with theater now, it's an interesting thing of it's all film actors being the headliners. So even it's I think it's actually a tough place for theater actors right now in New York. In LA, you know, you can go see theater there and you don't have to have like these major credits.
Unless
but
like the Geffen, or something,
yeah,
or
yeah,
CTG.
yeah. I mean, it actually was funny because the Geffen and Broadway, it was like I was understudying because I was understudying celebrities, and there was no, you know, it wasn't like it was between me and Laura Linney. You know what I mean? So I think that it's actually kind of trying to find its way. Versus here, you do have big names, like we're going to go see Streetcar, and it's got
Paul Mescal,
dreamy face, and then but then you also have actors who are famous theater actors here,
Right.
which is more rare.
Yeah.
We may be going to New York with you guys, depending on if you're rehearsing for something. You're for sure there for your graduation.
Might go.
We should be there.
Monica's graduating from Harvard, everybody.
Yeah.
Finally,
Big moment.
big moment, which is not in New York, but then I will be in New York.
Yes.
yes,
Yeah,
for
yeah,
sure. Yeah.
And I'm not like a big theater person. I feel, don't attack me.
Wait, we did have a clarification though recently where Indiana said that she likes experimental theater.
It's true.
She just
okay.
doesn't
No one
want to
says
see
that
things
ever.
that are on the West End. She doesn't want to see a musical or something. Indiana's a theater hipster. She wants to see German experimental theater.
that I was just called that. A theater hipster. That's me.
You would like Vano stuff.
Oh my God, yes.
Okay.
You want them to spill tomato juice all over your face.
Sure.
And
It's like a view from the bridge is happening. Like,
Shock me, like
Yes.
wow me.
Yeah.
I keep telling everybody recently, I don't know why, that I'm never wowed anymore in my life, whether by food or by people, men.
Monica and I are wowed by
We're like,
everything.
oh my God, did you see that?
I
sign?
look at that flower. So is Haley,
And he's a cynic.
That's true. Yeah,
and I'm just kind of like, been there, done that.
We did talk about this recently because you were like, I don't really get interested in food. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Everything I eat, I'm like, oh my God.
That's the only reason we knew I had food poisoning in the beginning was because I'm such a foodie and I was
love
like,
that.
I just can't eat anything.
I know.
We had beans this morning. I thought I was going to pass out. Heinz beans.
Yeah, I know. Haley,
Really, I like Cody too. It's so funny.
that's so cute.
We're the bubbliest. And then we've got you to like keep us.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
No,
I'm
you
like
keep
the
us
Wednesday
rooted apart.
Addams of the group.
You are, but
sometimes.
that's so in right now. Everyone wants to be Wednesday.
It's okay. I'm Thursday. I'm like the aftermath.
I'm Thursday.
I'm the aftermath. But experimental theater maybe is the thing that's going to wow me. So let's see what they got. But when we're in New York, maybe I'll go to something like that. And then I will go see A Doll's House because Jessica Chastain.
Yeah,
There
and
we
that is
go.
that is
Isn't
pretty. The way it's staged, it's not
'Cause
staged
it's-
So
traditionally.
she's like in a
It's-
chair, just stripped down.
It
It's like-
rotates.
yes,
and
it does.
Everyone's on stage the entire time or something. So.
Oh, I like stuff like that. I like that because maybe I like analyzing it a little more because I can start to break it down.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, things these days are rarely I found stage just like proscenium.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, got it.
Besides musicals,
Yeah. Won't be going. Sorry, won't ever go to that. Haley needs some of you guys in her life more to take her to that because I will
Always
not be
Haley.
going.
Yeah.
Even the other night, this guy, he was so sweet, and he surprised her with a dinner by putting his credit card down at a Great London restaurant, and he texted me to organize it and was like, "What night are you guys free? Bring whoever you want." He's like, "Best food I've ever had in my life," and I saw that and I went, "Yeah, okay, we'll see." And then we get there and Haley's like, "This is the best food I've ever had in my life." I'm like, "It's good, but it's not like, like
It was so
insane."
good. Listen, I hate eggplant. I think eggplant is an abomination. The texture's awful. It doesn't taste like anything. It's just crap. We shouldn't eat it. They made an aubergine dish that was somehow, it was like soft and gooey in the middle and crunchy on the outside, and then bathed in this like beautiful sweet chocolatey, soury, smoky
Wasn't
sauce.
chocolatey at all, but that's
And
fine.
there was a little bit of like chocolate in it. I know, because I really tasted it. And then there was like creamy stuff on bottom. It was so good. It's my favorite food, and it's eggplant. How
They do it well
do
here.
that?
Same. I'm not an eggplant person. I had it.
Yeah.
Aubergine. It's just because
Aubergine.
everything tastes better if it has a fancy name. It's like Alexandra Wright.
Courgette.
I do taste better when I'm Alexandra.
Okay, the stage to screen thing. This is something for the CFA side of stuff we want to touch on this year. And we did a director's roundtable once, and I want to do kind of a roundtable on stage to screen. Mm-hmm. Do you, when you guys are coaching that or working through that yourselves as actors, is there noticeable parts of your brain that are switched on and off for those kind of formats? Is there anything really crazy different for an actor where you're like, okay, I'm in theater mode or I'm in like film mode? Is that a thing?
I'm going to say something kind of controversial.
Please.
For me, like, no. To be
Great.
honest. Like,
Okay. Yeah.
no. I find that actors who go from stage to screen, that's easier than going from screen to stage.
Okay.
Yes.
I call it just covering. When actors are like, oh, you just do less on screen. In my mind, I don't think that's true. I think you just cover more, because if you're doing less, then the performance is flat. Like, I think you still have to have all the prep, all the size that you would for theater, and then you just cover it, and that gives a dynamic performance. But to go from screen to stage to make something bigger, but yet still feel authentic and truthful and grounded and not just like playing at something or exaggerated, I think that's a lot more difficult. I hear a lot of actors who are like, oh my God, how do I? And I'm like, you just do it. I don't know.
Okay.
As a coach, that's my
Just do
I mean,
it.
like, as for the character, it has to mean as much.
It has
to mean the
exactly.
same amount for both. It's just like your body does different
You just
things.
cover
you
it
just
more.
pull it back physically.
Yeah,
a
you
little
just
bit.
like, we all cover in different ways, right? We all have this rich inner life, all this deep substance, and then we cover it depending upon who we're with and what's appropriate and the social setting. And we all have different ways that we cover, and then that substance will kind of poke through sometimes, and that cover comes on a little bit more. Our characters are always going through that. And with theater, there's just more, sometimes I call it leaking. With theater, there's just more leaking out of that substance in like bigger ways, like in a bigger gesture, or it's a cross. It's like, you, for those who are like, what's a cross? Like, you just move, like movement across the stage. Where in film, that leaking might come out with just like, you move your eye line, or, a breath, the way you touch your face or something, right? Like, it's just smaller leakage, but everything is still there. That's the way I think about it. Or an image that's always really helped me is this idea of, I'm looking at the soundboard right now, like we have all these different levels, and it's not about bringing them all down to zero. It's just about like keeping them all where they are in relation to each other, and just slightly, just a little zoom down on the soundboard. It's not wiping them out completely, because we still need to have all that nuance and specificity.
I definitely agree. I think that, and it also depends if we're talking about like actual technique, if we're talking about auditioning, if we're talking about performance, because performance wise, there is a huge difference just in the fact of there's not multiple takes in the theater, right? And you have to go through the whole journey in the 2 hours or whatever. Versus obviously then if you're on set and you are replicating, which is actually, I shouldn't even use that word, because you're not trying to replicate your performance, but you are, doing it multiple times. I guess you could say multiple takes. You are going out of order. You're doing smaller chunks. So I do feel for that, it's a different, both sides require so much focus of an actor, but it is a slightly different use of focus because when you're on set, it's staying focused while they're, changing the setup of the cameras, it's focused as to where you are on the page, versus what you shot before, but, a previous day or whatever. But in the theater, it requires so much focus because we've all had that experience as actors of like, you kind of go in and out, or you're aware that you're like, oh, this feels really good. Or you hear that, that audience member that, unwraps their candy wrapper, their phone goes off. So to me, it's the same. It's like the same ingredients, but sometimes you just have to use them as different amounts.
I love that.
And I absolutely agree that it is easier to go from stage to screen because there are still a lot more, especially if you're thinking about if you're talking about like classical theater too, right? Of course, and there's a lot of elements there that kind of you do need to know in ways that you don't necessarily need to for TV in terms of how your voice. Although it is amazing, like there's a reason why we love the Judi Denches of the world, no matter whether she's on stage or screen.
Right. Yeah.
I have seen with actors. I've not had the privilege to be a series regular, but I have seen that in my my acting class. We get some, and they're very smart actors, meaning they can really they can move the scene forward, but the challenge that my teacher Tony Greco, shout out, would always say, is really about, okay, well, now you're allowed to be messy here, expand, take the risk, where you've been, that muscle has been sort of trained out of you on most sets, just because it has to be for time, and depending on the show, and there's a very specific rhythm, and it can only take this amount of seconds in the scene.
Something else too I just thought about is, when you're rehearsing a play, you have this beautiful luxury of building relationships. As you're building relationships with your castmates, those relationships are naturally forming on stage as well. So, if I'm doing Macbeth, and I can say that because we're not in a theater, and I'm Lady Macbeth and I have my Mac, like we're able to, as we are getting to know each other in the rehearsal process, build our own like physical vocabulary with how we touch each other, interact, or how we look at each other across the room as a married couple. When you show up on a set and you meet your husband and you're a guest star, you don't have that luxury. You have to, it's so interesting too, because I love watching how people interact with each other when they first meet on set, how quickly you have to build that intimacy, with deep eye contact, with sharing breath, pulling them over, immediately getting comfortable with not necessarily touching each other, but being in each other's energetic space. Yeah. You have to do that so immediately because it could be the
first time you've ever met this person, and then you have to be
intimate with them. Ooh, and thank God now we have intimacy coordinators and choreographers to help facilitate those conversations, like the actual conversations around that intimacy. But you don't have that luxury of I've been getting a pint with this person every day after rehearsal, and so there's our own intimacy off stage that can bleed into our intimacy on stage. So I always find that really fascinating, that immediate kind of connection and deep listening that has to happen with a complete stranger.
Well, and then on shows you have, if you were to go on Grey's Anatomy, you're walking into something where people have known each other for, years and years and years and years. And if you're coming in, as the guest of the day, it is very different energetically versus if you're all starting. Yeah, even I guess you have that in theater. You have put-ins and things like that for something that's been running for a long time. That's usually musicals because plays don't tend to run as long, but. It's more of the dynamics. It's less about the actual act. No, it's the same. That's the same, but it's the whole world around it that,
got it.
Changes.
I'm curious to hear if y'all have had this experience. Whenever I go do like a guest star spot or something, that's like the first day, you can tell. And of course, because I remember I was a series regular on a show that sadly never went off the ground, but we shot a lot of seasons of it. And I remember after a while, like you have some new people coming in every day, and you're obviously you want to be gracious and welcoming and generous to them, but then you're also doing your own stuff, And so when you meet someone new, you kind of forget this is this person's first time on set. Like it might be my 200th time on this set. This is their first time. So anyway, the phrase I always say to myself now, and I've never said this out loud, so this is going to be weird, but I heard this once, which is know me by my work. And so when I show up on a set and I meet the series regulars, and I can tell they have zero interest in really getting to know me because they have 10,000 other things they're worried about. It's always interesting because after that first take, when then they're like, what's your name again?
Yeah.
Know me by my work. I'm going to show up. You're going to have no idea who I am. We're going to shake hands. You're probably going to forget my name.
Yeah.
But I feel like after that first take, you'll go, oh,
Okay.
this person can work.
Yes.
And this person knows what they're doing. And that always is the thing that builds trust. I feel like when you walk onto those sets where they're such a well-oiled machine and they're so used to just, here's a new person, here's a new person. It's like, know me by my work. Let me be that person that makes you stop and go, who are you?
And that was one of the things that I feel like we lost with in the pandemic. We were so siphoned. So I had left acting for like 8 years, and I came back really just in time for the pandemic. Like the last things I've done booked have all been in the pandemic. And so, or even like now, like with the rules, so people are so separated so that you have to stay in your trailer until it's like time to come on set. And there's still like sort of this nervousness oftentimes around being being near the series regular and Contagion and all of those things. And I think that's been a bummer. Like I do remember my first thing back was The Blacklist, and we were filming in an actual house, so it's really hard to keep people separate. And we were literally, it was like, go to your room. And it's nothing against they were doing everything they could. Like the stand-ins were wearing masks. I didn't even get. I tried to make a point to say thank you to my stand-in, whatever, but it was really separate. No. So I think I'm hopeful that hopefully things will start to open up again, because that is one of the things that I feel makes our job harder is that separation. And also finding something small, finding some point of connection, even if you don't get to say it out loud. So like when I was doing something and I had to be this like grieving mother, I was just, you're just like plopped in and it's go. And the lead actor was wearing a watch that my dad has.
Yeah, I remember you talking about
and
that.
so I just like focused on instead of being overwhelmed that I'm in the scene with the 2 series regulars, I focused on that, and that helps like ground you, even if it's not, has nothing to do with your choices as an actor. It's something familiar. There's a story that my teacher will tell about like Ellen Bernstein telling this like guy that was on for like a day that had to play her son, like, you have the same eyes as Frank Sinatra. Then it was like, go. But it was like, the guy was like, that was all I need. Like, yes, now this is my mom. You just need those like small things to feel seen and connected, I think.
Wow.
Also, that's so helpful because presence is all about finding our surroundings and the people we're with more interesting than our own self-talk and our own self-awareness and self-consciousness. And you're so self-conscious as an actor when you have all these cameras pointed at you. And especially like, again, if you don't know the crew or collaborating with them in the way that y'all are encouraging people to, your own internal monologue about your performance and am I doing this right is so loud, and that is the death of all presence. So whenever I'm being slated, I'm like, what's one new thing about my partner? Or if it's just me, I'm like, what's one new thing about the space? Like, oh, there's a scratch on the side of that cabinet. Yeah. Just like you have Frank Sinatra's eyes. Like that's my dad's watch. Like those things, it's about just taking that magnifying glass that so wants to just be on yourself and just going, can I force this out? That's why Meisner repetition is so great for actors, because Meisner repetition is just all about you are making comments about me. So I'm going to feel so self-conscious right now because you're making comments about me, and I have to override my impulse to watch myself through those comments and make comments about you.
Alex, I want to ask you about Know Me by My Work and being slotted in as a co-star and realizing that you got to be there and work, and then you'll be able to connect. Aside from just being a good actor and having your art ready, is there anything you are doing when it's time to shoot? Maybe you're doing it unconsciously at this point, but was there anything that you found you can interact with the crew in a certain way that lets them know you know what you're doing and you can work and you're ready to work?
Good question. I think it's like having the conversations that y'all are talking about having, and which I think is so scary to have. If you're doing a co-star that you're probably not early in your career, but like that's probably one of your first few times on set. And so as a co-star, it can be scary to go like, what's my frame?
Yeah.
But yeah, not being afraid to, first of all, I think a big thing, and this is going to sound negative and I don't mean for it to, knowing when to not be in the way, when to not take up space or when to not ask questions. Like if you are a co-star, don't be asking people what your motivation is, like,
right,
like don't be talking about your process,
right?
Like
your motivation is to move the story.
You're moving, like,
that's what you're doing.
Do what you did in the audition, like. So I think part of it is also knowing when not to ask questions, and kind of reading the room, knowing when to like be out of the way, and then when you do find the time to ask the question, making sure you're asking questions that are in collaboration with the people around you, so that you are helping the DP, that if you're asking the director a question, it's about how am I moving the story forward. And I hate to say it, but really I feel like a lot of it is just like being easy and nice and kind and showing that you're open to collaborate.
Yeah.
You know, look, everyone has their own process. And I always say, like, I don't care if you pray to a purple praying mantis, like whatever gets you through the take. But I think a big problem too that I see on set with a lot of new actors is they make their process everyone else's problem. And that to me is not know me by my work. That is like, let me show you my work.
Yeah.
And
That's so interesting.
that's not being a good teammate.
Yeah.
You know, I think maybe that's my answer. It's like letting people know that through your work and through your actions that you're there as a teammate and a collaborator versus making the whole process about you.
Right.
You know, I was on a show, this was the one I was a series regular on, and this guy was supposed to be recurring and he ended up not returning because we all had such an issue with his process because he only wanted to be called by the character's name. He was a day player. For this one, this is his first day on set.
Right.
He was going to be recurring, but he only wanted to be called by the character's name. He was listening to his music really loud between every take. And so the poor sound guy was like, hey, can you please turn your music off? And then he would have to, sorry, character name, will you please turn your music off? And then we had to sit there and wait while he took his headphones out. And then he would like find a PA and like hand them off to the PA. And so like everything just took like, maybe only 30 seconds longer.
But it's just taxing.
It's taxing. Yeah. And it's like, there's, I think, an idea amongst greener actors that like, if I have this process, people will think that I'm professional. That doesn't help anyone.
Understanding your place in the collaboration and understanding everyone is important. There are no small parts, only small actors, but there are parts that are meant in the story to be a tool for the story, not you're a tool to tell the lead stories, kind of. Yeah. So if you know that that's where you are, your process can't be bigger than 1 and 2 on the call sheet.
Yeah.
Well, and I just want to say that it's not method because people are going to listen to that and they're gonna be like, oh, that actor's being method.
That's
God,
not
giving
not
method a bad name.
Method.
I like that you're saying
method.
that. That's funny.
It makes me so mad when people are like, even the other day I was on a call and someone was like, oh, well, you have to meet Alex. She trained in Russia in Stanislavski's system. So she's method. And I was like,
no. Don't tell people that.
Is that the actor's worst fear of being like called method when you're not method?
No. I mean, I studied method, but it's that method is just a method of acting, actually, technically. Okay. But it has been, depending on who you talk to, it is. Yeah, there's many ways, and even that's because at the studio, their teachers broke off, and there's all these like different stories, versions about what it is, but. And of course, I believe the way that I'm being trained now is correct. But no matter what, that is not what Stanislavski was talking about. It has nothing to do with imitating. It's the opposite. It's actually the opposite.
Stanislavski actually hated all of that. Yeah. And so we can, quick little theater.
Yes, please. Educate those that don't know. Yeah.
So Konstantin Stanislavski, Russian theater director and practitioner, and he created Stanislavski's system. And then because he was creating this in the middle, the Soviet Union, he was writing all these books. And so what we have in the States is actually like a very bastardized, censored version of what they have in Russia. And then at the time, if you wanted to study with him, he was doing workshops in America, but a lot of people went to study with him. And so Stella Adler and Lee Strasberg studied with Stanislavski, and because we're human, they were like, I have the real system. No, I have the real system. And really what they were doing was just like taking the parts that worked for them and then like extrapolating on those. Sure. And so when people hear method, what they typically are thinking of is Strasberg. It's and not Stanislavski's system.
Oh.
And then you had all of the actors coming out of there like Brando and such, and these sort of, larger than life characters. Brando wasn't doing that. Brando, right. In Streetcar, like he is truly acting off of Vivian. Like he's taking her version of Blanche seriously and acting off of how he felt about her. Right. That's very different than him being like, I need to go research
what I'm in the character the entire time.
Yeah, you must call me Stanley.
That's not method. The idea that like I have to be in character all the time and like that's not.
I feel like method has become synonymous with actors inconveniencing everyone else around them. Like actors being
so
like, this is for my
strange.
art.
Yeah.
We have to wrap up, but I thought we would do that by doing the Thorn Bud Rose that Monica leads because it's become such an integral part of our like
All
in-person
right.
stuff. Could you explain the Thorn Bud Rose that
Sure.
maybe someone can take off of this podcast and bring to a coffee interaction they're having, and then we'll do our own?
Sure. So during the 8 years that I had left acting, I was doing a lot of community building and programming and events and things like that. And, a lot of big part of that is getting people to actually connect with one another. So the idea behind the Rosebud Thorn is it's really sort of an empathy exercise, but also something that no matter what state of being that you're in, you'll be able to find, to share honestly with that. So the Rosebud Thorn, I'm going to do it in reverse order so
Yes.
that we end on a positive note.
Okay.
So a thorn is something that you could use help with, something that you're struggling with right now. And that could be something, large. Like I give the example of like, I could really use help figuring out visa stuff here
Yes.
or husband or whatever, whatever you want it to be. A bud is something that is in process. It's something that's growing. It's something that's, it's on the horizon. It's, a script that you're finishing. Rose is what's blooming, what's going really well. Us being in a podcast together in London.
Amazing.
Huzzah.
Huzzah.
Haley, do you want to start it off?
Okay. Yeah. My thorn right now is I really, really want to go back to theater in a big way. I have wanted to for a long time, but I have psychological demand avoidance, so I am not doing it. I'm not looking for monologues. I'm not preparing anything. I'm just wishing that I could go back to theater. So that's my big thorn right now is my frustration with myself and the things that I have to do in order to do something that I want to do. My bud is that I learned how to, I think, curl my hair
It looks
in
really
a
great.
really great way
Yeah.
that I'm really
In a
happy
I was
with.
like, yes.
Heatless
It's
way.
heatless.
Oh.
It's not interrupting my sleep, but I think I've figured it out. There's bangs that I'm trying to figure out right now, but that's my bud. That is a big bud right now because I've always wanted curls. And my rose is cinematography for actors. It just keeps blooming and keeps bringing me people who I just like fucking cherish, like I find everyone who I'm meeting to be the most interesting person, and I'm so excited about it. And my friendship with Indiana just keeps getting like deeper and more wonderful. And I just feel like the gifts I'm getting from building this company with Indiana are just the biggest, bloomiest bloom. Indy?
I'll finish.
Oh,
I'm bad. I need to
okay.
think. I
She's
need
gonna-
inspo all the time from people because I always get stuck on the bud.
Well, it's because we don't impress you enough.
I'm not wowed.
Nothing wows Indiana
Nothing
anymore.
wows me anymore.
Yeah, Alex.
My thorn, really, it's just about finding balance, which I think is something that I always struggle with. I'm very enthusiastic about many things.
Because we're 7 on the Enneagram. We're 7.
Enneagrams. We are the opposite of indies.
Yes. Yeah.
So I tend to say yes to a lot of things, and then I'm like, there's
Yes.
no time. So that's my thorn. My bud is, though, and this I am excited about this, and this will help with the thorn, is bringing on more coaches for the community.
Amazing.
Because right now it's great. It's when you're like, I'm too busy, I have to turn away work, but you always hate doing that. So it's nice. Monica's actually going to be one of the coaches.
Yes. Oh my
And
God,
so
a great addition to the
yes.
team. Fantastic.
Cody's going to be doing her alignment
Yes.
branding work. Corey, who was actually just in the Kerry Washington show, she's going to be coaching, and then Meg's going to be doing all our commercial coaching.
It's
So-
a team.
Yes,
I love
this
this.
is so fantastic.
I love stuff like
and they're all witches. So
this. Wows me. This wows me. I love this.
And so
did it.
that's really cool to just be like, hey, do you want some work? And,
Yeah.
and then I can be like, please take this work.
Yes.
The rose, I agree, is like, y'all, this whole trip, I'm just like, I want to cry like every day. getting to hang out with Monica and Cody, and like I'm so grateful for Monica too. Like I mean, like I think about like we met.
We feel
like,
the love over here. We
like,
feel
met
it.
last year on Zoom. It's when like
She coached me and I booked.
Yeah, thank goodness.
There it is.
So
There you
like
go.
it's just like the universe just keeps being like, do you want to meet another amazing human? Here
I
we go.
know.
You
Yeah. I
It's just
know.
like what's the phrase? Of something of riches.
Oh, an embarrassment of riches.
An embarrassment of riches.
Fantastic.
We are embarrassed.
I'm so embarrassed.
Oh,
Monica.
Well, okay. Thorn is sort of, I mean, very similar because, again, we are very similar in this way. But, I mean, time, because there's all the things. But I'm actually going to go with a more recent Thorn that happened the other night. And I can't believe I'm going to admit this.
Okay.
Oh.
We're ready.
There's a British actor director that I have been a fan of, we shall say, and
fan?
everybody's been like, "You're going to meet him. You're going to meet him." He's on not on social. It is very difficult to find this man, and I was like, I was really ready. I was really ready this time. And then when we met up with you guys for drinks, I was like, nobody knows him. I have no contact. And one of them was like, oh, I know someone who works with him. I think I don't want to give away like too much. So anyway, so she texts him and she's like very casually come back. She's like, oh yeah, he's taken with children. And I was like, I don't think you understand how devastating this is to me. And I'm like getting through like drinking my gin and tonic. Like,
Oh my God.
Everything is fine. So that I'm gonna say that's my thorn. However, it is opening me up to new possibilities because I have been determined.
Your
that
heart
it
is
this
open.
person. My heart is open. But he is such a trope of what my type is. So and then I just said that my bud is creative projects. I have these scripts that it's about like time. These scripts, these projects that I can feel they're on the horizon. I just need to like finish them for heaven's sake. And then the rose is the community. I mean, I know, it sounds repetitive, but it's been, I mean, just amazing. There's so much alignment happening. It feels like it's actually happening hourly, and so I think it's like almost overwhelming. I keep saying I just need to like sit down and like figure out how to put all these pieces together.
That's an embarrassment of riches. I totally forgot to tell you this story, and I feel like this might give you some hope. I had a British actor like that I fell in love with in the pandemic. Went down a rabbit hole, learned all about him. He does stuff on the West End. I think I know who it is. Beautiful. No social media at all. Last month, my friend from grad school was like, I'm having this party. And my friend from grad school now is a dialect coach in all these big sets. And so I walk into my friend's house and there is this man. And we like lock eyes. So I like kind of fumble around for like an hour and don't really know what to do with my hands. And then he comes up and starts talking to me. We hit it off. He hits on me. I find out he is married to someone who is very famous. And that's the night that Ben showed up at the dinner party. That same party, saw me talking with him, and now Ben and I are dating.
And now
I love that.
maybe he's your bridge
Exactly.
boy.
He's your bridge boy.
He's a bridge
You're
boy.
going to run into him next year. You're going to see him at a party.
And he will bridge you to the
He will bridge you to the next person.
I just hope I can be there to witness.
I just
them.
hope it's sooner than next year.
everyone, Monica is ready to mingle.
But it's a very specific. I said you have to look very pale
She goes, he needs to look like he hasn't seen the sun in 3 years.
Oh my God.
because he's studying.
Indy, what is
Okay,
Rose Bud
Indiana.
Rose?
I'll finish us
Thorn
off.
Bud Rose.
I'll finish it off. Thursday over here. The Thorn is
Everything.
it's everything.
My life is a thorn.
The Thorn is probably like staying true to like my actual emotions in situations. I feel like I'm like very good at that, and then as soon as I'm plunged into the thing that I'm most insecure about, which is relationships with new people,
Which is shocking.
yeah. Sure. Is I suddenly then become like I try and turn off the emotions and go into work mode if there's conflict. So it's more like it's some would say robotic. But it's like how do I how do I isolate the feelings and start to analyze the situation in order to resolve conflict immediately, because I don't want to prolong the amount of conflict needed. And so instead of that, so while doing that, I think I push off the way I'm actually feeling just so I can get it over with. And then it like what is it, ruminate?
It just, you keep replaying it. Kind
Yeah. And so I think staying true to being like, look, if you perceive me any sort of way because I have emotions, that's fine. Then maybe we're not a match kind of thing. So I think I just have to actually be emotional, where I tend not to be. I tend to put the positive out, but then get rid of that negative side. So that I think is the thorn of staying true to the emotional side of me, both areas. And then I think bud is, everything's in bloom, which is great. I think the bud is the scheduling. So I think for me, I love having a busy schedule, back to back things.
I wouldn't have guessed.
I need a B12 shot every 2 weeks, but I love that. That's why I love looking at Alex's calendar when she loves me, because I'm just this is amazing. She's I have time for an hour. And I'm oh my God, I love this.
I can fit you out 30 minutes.
Yeah, I know. I'm do I need to book something in there so it's just filled? And so I think that the bud is figuring out in the schedule how to also have a life. So it's what does it look like? Am I able to process the things during my day because I have enough time to process emotions and reflect on and live in the present if I'm constantly going from one thing to the next?
I just love that you say process instead of process.
I know. I've noticed.
But you know what? My therapist pointed that out to me. She was
yeah.
I think you're just distracting yourself. I'm not saying this is you.
No, you
but
might right.
You're distracting yourself from your emotions by packing your schedule so much that there's no white space to actually
absolutely
sit and feel.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. That's totally it.
She said it's if we have fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. That's the flight. That's the flight. The book.
Oh, interesting. Wow. Flight, fight,
freeze, or fawn. It's it's our trauma responses.
What's the last one?
Fawn,
which is mine.
Yeah, I go into fawning too, where it's whatever you want, whatever you want, whatever you want.
Interesting.
Whatever you want.
Got it. Yeah. The rose is definitely just life as a whole, including cinematography for actors. So I have currently 3 careers, which is great. I'm now a VP of partnerships and strategy for a sub rental company. So I'm getting to support. The best thing about that, and I have provisions in my contract where I can still, take off days for shooting, which is great.
Fantastic.
But the best part about that is the people that have supported me in my career are a lot of vendors and rental houses, obviously, as a DP. And now I'm able to kind of turn tables and go into meetings and go, hey, we've known each other 10 years. I'm now in a position. How can I support you? I love that because our community is all about support. And then I'm DPing, which is great because I just got off of the reshoots the additional for a feature that I'm excited that's going to come out. And then cinematography for actors, we're now getting approached by companies to do events. So
fantastic.
Fingers crossed Middle East works out. That's the next thing I'm putting out into the universe right now. But
come on, Doha.
But I feel very much in alignment with all of you. And I'm so excited that we were able to kind of do a recap episode. I'm so sorry to miss all of these incredible London special limited edition
people, so
we're just gonna sing songs.
I know, exactly. But
Shakespeare.
Yeah, but thank you guys so much for coming on again.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, if we will link below Alex and Monica's work and where you can find them, and then Haley and I probably have some newsletters and photos from recent events we can share, and keep the love coming. But we hope you enjoy these London episodes.
Cheerio.
Woo.
Thanks for joining us, you guys.
Yay. See you soon. Bye.
Thanks for listening. Bye.
And this was another episode of the Topanga Collective Cinematography for Actors Delta Acting Community Monica McCarthy Philosophy Podcast. Oh.